Generic greetings and welcome to Science Insanity, a show dedicated to bringing my love of science fiction in all its often nonsensical glory to you. Joining me is no one, unfortunately, because this is a re-recording. I am extremely mad at myself because in my incredible stupidity and haste to free up a little bit of storage space on my hard drive, I accidentally deleted Steve's half of the recording, so I had to redo this on the morning of the upload in order to actually get a video out this week. Oh, I'm so mad at myself. So mad I don't even have the energy to shill for the Patreon. Spacebucks, woo, feed Steve. Okay, moving on. Today, we will be covering the Timberwolf, henceforth known as the madcat. It was a clan... You know what? No, hang on. This was supposed to come like 10 minutes in, but since I'm not trolling Steve, I might as well explain it now. I was gonna make a running joke of changing the name I referred to this thing between Madcat and Timberwolf every single time I said the name to just confuse the hell out of Steve because he remembers nothing about anything, so, you know, I might as well explain this now that he's not here. The Madcat or the Timberwolf. The mech has two separate names, and the reason for that is who saw it and which shitty targeting system was looking at it. When the clans first invaded, all of the clan mechs were basically unknown and unidentifiable to inner sphere targeting systems since, well, they've never seen these things before. Only a rare few mechs, like the clan versions of the Riflemen, could somewhat be identified by the inner sphere mechs, since it was so similar, but often came with the nasty surprise of not being a flimsy hunk of junk and was actually good at slapping back. The same thing happened to the Timberwolf. When it was first definitively engaged with actual survivors sending information back about it, the targeting computer of a Wolfhound mech piloted by Phelan Kell kept glitching, rapidly changing between the designation MAD and CAT, as it was unsure if it was looking at a Marauder or a Catapult, which is a colossal difference in mechs if you're aware of Battletech lore. Fusing the two is absolutely ridiculous. Eventually, though, the display froze with both the designations on screen. Hey presto, a very angry feline was born. The reason this happened is because the massive missile racks on the Timberwolf's shoulders looked like a catapult, but the sweeping cockpit arms and legs looked like a Marauder. So now you know, its official designation was the Timberwolf, but the Inner Sphere called it the Madcat, and since the Inner Sphere's opinions are all that matters, hey-ho heavy industry, the name stuck. Now, we can actually start talking about its history proper. The Madcat was developed about midway through the clan's establishment as the military juggernaut we know them as during the invasion, as one of three replacements to the Woodsman, an aging and first-generation clan Omni-Mech that, while still solid, was reaching the end of its life. No longer able to be upgraded and unable to carry the more powerful or larger clan equipment due to the size restrictions of its Omnipods, the other two mechs that were designed to replace it were the Gargoyle and the Naga, a respectable assault mech and fire support platform respectively that performed well, but were nothing special. The Timberwolf, however, was one of those rare designs like the Warhammer, the Atlas, or the Centurion that, through excellent design, pure dumb luck, or divine providence, ended up as, for its time and circumstances, don't at me to argue about what mech is the best in the comments, one of the greatest things ever built for its role. The Madcat in early drills and testing proved to be an effective design, of course, as most clan mechs were, but only during combat trials was its true effectiveness felt, able to target and destroy light mechs with ease due to its high-precision targeting systems and accuracy, capable of keeping up with or even outrunning some medium mechs due to its almost supernaturally strong leg assemblies, and capable of slugging it out with even the best of assault mechs. The Timberwolf, as a 75-ton heavy mech, in many ways was like the real-life invention of the main battle tank, doing everything so well that it began to invalidate many other battlefield roles filled by similar but slightly more niche vehicles. No longer did you separate them out into light, medium, heavy, and assault tanks, you just needed one because it could do basically everything. And to anyone who's played MechWarrior online, they will understand that is exactly what the Timberwolf did when it was first added. My god, that thing was broken on release, and it is still stupidly strong. The rough point I'm trying to make here is that I'm pretty sure a force of nothing but Timberwolves would be borderline insurmountable unless you not only had godlike terrain advantage and equivalent or superior firepower, but also got real lucky. The madcat was so effective that it could only possibly have been built by a single clan. And before I reveal that to anyone that may not know, take a wild guess who built this thing. I'll give you a few hints to those that really understand the Battletech lore. Insanely overperforming, basically mech Jesus, plural. It flexed on all the other clans as hard as possible. It won basically every challenge in battle it ever goes up against. Plot armor out the ass, and they actually had logistics. Right? You got your comments? You type everything down there? Correct! You got it right! Good old clan soup stock coming at you once more with something else that for some reason is just better than all the other clans. Kerensky from Beyond the Grave once again divinely inspired the creation of some of the most busted and iconic mechs of the IP. Thanks, Clan Wolf. Your main character status has definitely not been challenged at all. Like I was saying though, the Timberwolf was so effective that once it was fully rolled out and unveiled by Clan Wolf to all the other smooth-brained space eugenicists, they all collectively immediately went, "Wow, that's awesome. Now give it to me." Clan Wolf was forced to fight multiple battles of refusal to prevent the other clans from gaining production rights to the mech. And for anyone who doesn't know what a battle of refusal is, or who doesn't understand how smooth-brained clan or politics actually are, imagine you and your younger sibling sitting down to go play Xbox, okay? There's only one controller, and being the older sibling, you get to play on it. However, mom says it's little brother's turn on the console. The only difference is that in real life you would have to acquiesce to your parental authority's request, but in the clan space, your younger brother would have to fistfight you for control, and if he wins, he gets the Xbox, and if he loses, he gets a black eye. Functionally identical to most sibling relationships anyways. I mean, bad analogy, but you get the point. Clan Wolf, making use of their new mech, as well as having plot armor thicker than any warship, was able to successfully defeat all challengers, and if I remember correctly, to this day, still jealously guards the ability to produce the Timberwolf, and only into the really late lore and progression of the Battletech universe do we actually see other factions or other factories or locations, whatever, actually building Timberwolves. For most of Battletech history, however, the only planet that was capable of producing the Timberwolf before the clan invasion was held by Clan Wolf on the world of Strana Mechti. The only way to get a madcat for pretty much the longest time in Battletech is essentially to get one as a gift from Clan Wolf for either doing something really amazing, or being just the greatest badass of all time, or, I guess, making the Khan laugh or something. I don't know, it's a little bit arbitrary. Or trade for it at a stupidly inflated price and for very small numbers. There is another way, but I don't really consider it to be a valid way of acquiring one, because you could always salvage from the battlefield, which, you know, good luck with that. You have to kill a couple of them first, and, Good luck trying to get one, much less 3 or 4 that you would need to actually get all the components to build a functioning one. Part of the reason the Timberwolf was so effective was because of its design. Being an omni-mech already made it far more flexible and modular than most other mechs. However, the Timberwolf's unique weapon layout meant that it could be generalized or hyper-specialized for anything a given commander might need on the battlefield. And speaking of, let's start talking about what this bad boy actually has in its arsenal to kill you. The Timberwolf Prime is the classic, so we're going to be going over its weapon loadout as if it's the bog standard. The giant missile racks, the heavy energy weapons in its arms, and meme kinetics in its torso. The madcat has 2 clan LRM-20s up in the shoulders, the giant boxes of doom. Essentially, the biggest missile racks mountable on a mech that aren't some absolute meme like an Arrow 4 or an atomic missile launcher or something. They're capable of the classic indirect barrage fire that all LRMs are, assuming someone else is holding lock for you, but the clan LRMs are also capable of direct fire, locking onto a target and flying with significantly increased accuracy directly into their forehead, even at close range. with one of the biggest differences between Inner Sphere and Clan LRM batteries being that the clans have no concept of personal space whatsoever, and they have almost no minimum range, meaning that while you can get in underneath the firing arc of any Inner Sphere Lermboat, if you try to rush a Clan LRM spammer, he is simply going to point at you, grin, and then dump 40 missiles worth of pain directly into your face. Warheads to foreheads is more literal than you might think with these things. The Timberwolf also has 2 extended range large lasers in its arms that are capable of poking you from over 1.5 kilometers away and doing significant damage while doing said poking. Supplemented with 2 extended range medium lasers that provide extra firepower at medium to long-ish range, and together with the missiles, the madcat can put down withering fire from long range, often outside the return fire range of smaller mechs, or basically everything the Inner Sphere has. For when things get up close and personal, it also has a pulse laser and 2 clan machine guns. Which, while, isn't the best brawling loadout worth of weapons, it's still something. The machine guns are also for anti-infantry purposes. Just in case some recklessly stupid idiot decides to cosplay the Imperial Guard from 40k or something and bayonet charge the mech, because, I'm sure that Inner Sphere infantry would absolutely be able to get through the wall of lasers, hail of missiles, and swarm of elementals in front of the Timberwolf. Also, I've heard people argue that the machine guns are there so that the Timberwolf can engage clan elementals back in clan space, which doesn't make sense, because canonically we've seen elementals soak short-range missiles to the forehead and not care, so what would a machine gun do to those things? It's just the weirdest random little 2 pew guns that were put on there. So just in case the commander is really angry, he can fire the machine guns and have the satisfaction of some Daka to calm said clan pilot down a little bit. It's the weirdest thing ever, and I love it. Although, if we're talking about weird, funny anti-infantry things, there is a version of the Timberwolf called the F, which I think is just the funniest shit ever. It is identical to everything we just described, however, instead of the machine guns, it has a trio of anti-infantry Gauss rifles. For people who don't know what that is, Gauss rifles in Battletech, they're basically railguns. They're basically railguns from every other science fiction universe you've ever heard of, and they just have 3 of them in the Timberwolf for dealing with random infantry. Okay, alright, fair enough, whatever you say, clanners. I'm sure that was absolutely a necessary addition onto the mech. Of course, there's also the Timberwolf A configuration, which I consider to be basically the best you're gonna get out of a Timberwolf in terms of flexibility. Instead of the lasers in the arms, it carries a pair of extended range particle cannons, and these things are monstrous. Together, they're capable of canonically stripping about 2 tons of armor. For anyone that needs a better visualization, that's about 4,000 pounds. That is a car and a half. Your average car is like 2,500 pounds. Each time this thing hits another mech in the face, it is melting a car directly off worth of armor. That is 4,000 pounds of armor. That is insanity. Science insanity. I'm sorry, that was a terrible joke. I had to go for it though. Please forgive this terrible content creator. However, once things actually get a little bit closer range, it's equipped with 3 medium pulse lasers, an ER small laser, and streak SRMs, short-range missiles, sitting up in those big missile racks. This thing is basically the definition of, I'll kill you across the continent, and if I don't, I'll smash your face in myself. It's quite good, if I do say so myself. And the reason that the Timberwolf is able to be this spooky and carry so many different kinds of weapons is those omnipods it has. If it needs, it can swap out all of its energy weapons for medium or large pulse lasers and switch its long-range missiles around for short-range ones, subsequently turning into a terrifying brawler in urban or heavily cluttered environments. If it wants to switch out the omnipods to be literally nothing but ballistics and cram as many mech-sized shotguns in as it can go full Texan and nobody can stop it. The Battle of Tukiad is an amazing example of this, where Clan Wolf, the plot armor bastards that they are, repeatedly refit their mechs, including the Timberwolf, for whatever was needed. Early on, it was almost exclusively energy weapons and laser vomit, since the Comguard strategy was intending to wear down their supply and ammo, and Clan Wolf decided, how about we don't do that? And as things transitioned into urban fighting, once everything was, a little more settled around the outskirts of the objective cities, everything was refit again to carry autocannons and missiles for as heavy a punch as possible in the close confines of a city. Now, the weapons loadout was excellent, but oh boy, does this thing have some other, advantages, let's say. On to the other stats, like armor and sensors and speed, starting with armor. Equipped with advanced clan ferrofibrous armor, the Timberwolf could mount more protection than most inner sphere assault mechs 30 tons heavier than it, while taking up less space. The Type A2 composite armor provided excellent protection at a fraction of the weight, but in addition, the Timberwolf also had an endosteel structure. And for people who don't know what that is, endo is essentially an advanced form of metallurgy, using special alloys forged in zero gravity with additional composites added afterwards. Endosteel, even from the primitive inner sphere, is nearly twice as strong for the same weight, allowing a mech's internal structure to be far smaller and significantly lighter. The clan endosteel, coupled with the ferrofibrous armor in the madcat, lowered the weight of its structure so much while keeping it strong that it was essentially more well-armed and armored by raw tonnage than most mechs significantly heavier than it. This all culminated in the greatest goddamn thing in Battletech: mobility and speed. The madcat can run, and I say run because most mechs look like they're walking even at max speed, but the madcat, this son of a bitch is absolutely hoofing it across the battlefield at around 85 kph. Around 45 miles per hour, something like that, give or take. That is a pretty terrifying speed for such a large mech to run. Also, to the best of my knowledge, the clans do have systems like Mask, that's M-A-S-C, but I can't remember if the Timberwolf being an Omnimech means that it can't actually use it. Now, the Mask is basically a piece of equipment that overstresses the myomer muscles in the mech to make it move faster at the risk of damaging it if used for too long. Theoretically though, if the Timberwolf could use a system like that, it could goddamn sprint at over 100 kph. To put that into perspective, the Abrams main battle tank moves around 75 kph. This thing, without assistance, would still outrun it. It's great. But on top of that, something I do know for a fact is that the Timberwolf always has the highest ground possible because it can goddamn fly. Okay, look, over-exaggeration, mildly, but the madcat also can install jump jets, letting it get some serious boost to its speed or height and hang sick airtime. Described several times in the lore and books and stuff, the madcat is often seen as confusingly and terrifyingly fast by inner sphere pilots. It can seemingly appear from anywhere, since jump jets on a mech that size are extremely rare, and Soupstock Kerensky made the broth extra chunky this time, built to satisfy, cooked different. The Timberwolf is terrifying. So let's move on to a few notable variants of the mech that have cropped up over the years due to the madcat's reputation and quality, essentially trying to piggyback off its name and ride for free to success. Because the madcat was so effective and had built the reputation for being one of the best mechs just ever, multiple other clans and factions attempted to create copies of the madcat in order to cash in or compete. There are 3 notable versions of said cash grab. The madcat Mark II, a 90-ton assault mech based off the design of the Timberwolf with truly withering firepower and armor, but much slower and less maneuverable. Designed by Clan Diamond Shark for the impress intention of selling as many as possible. Make all of the money! We are gonna be filthy freaking rich, at least as much as you can in clan society. The madcat Mark IV is the next one up, and it was essentially a more modern upgrade to the traditional madcat design, bringing improved components and prototype equipment. The biggest thing about this mech that I find just so weird is that it's got a 360-degree missile pods. Not only does the Mark IV have the normal, highly powerful forward-facing energy weapons and the missile racks and stuff, but it also has rearwards-facing SRMs, letting the Mark IV literally surprise any would-be flanker by just farting out a volley of death at anyone who tries to get around behind it. It's so weird, it's so strange in Battletech. Almost no mechs have the ability to fire behind them, and the few that do are like the riflemen, where they just turn their arms around to face backwards and fire that way. It's virtually unheard of that a mech just actually has rearwards facing weapon mounts. It's very cool. And while there are others, like a light version of it that's 20 tons lighter than the actual Timberwolf, the last one we're going to talk about, because it's funny, is the Rakshasa. This was an attempt by the Inner Sphere to build a copy of the madcat. It was a Frankenstein piece of shit. That is all. And last thing, right at the end, some things I found funny while doing research. During the clan invasion, a guy named Mindo Waterly suggested that Comstar could modify the catapult by giving it arms to be the same as the Timberwolf since they looked so similar, which is just laughably stupid to anyone that knows almost anything about Battletech. It is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard, but also, pre-Centaur Marshal Anastasius Foch basically slapped this guy's nuts immediately afterwards and told him he's an idiot before pointing to all the combat data they had and then asking if a catapult could 1v10 an entire lance of medium and heavy mechs. It cannot. And that is pretty much it. The Timberwolf, Sledgehammer of Clan Wolf, and one of the best mechs ever built, and also one of the most iconic mechs in all of Battletech, only rivaled by, in my opinion, the Atlas. It shows up on notable artwork and covers for books, rules manuals, and everything in between, and it is literally the face of the clan invasion with these oh-so-famous pieces of artwork. I will say though, because I know it'll make a lot of people mad, the Timberwolf's OG appearance is widely beloved by the community, and I agree, it is really awesome, don't get me wrong, but look, the Mech Warrior redesign, the modern updated visuals for it just look so much better. Not only do the legs look a little beefier, a little chunkier, and the actual torso and upper body look more lean and sleek, but the actual arms no longer look like they're made of metal noodles dangling off the sides. It looks significantly better. Feel free to fight me about that in the comments, I will die on this hill. And with that said, the video is all but over, and thanks must be given to all of the patrons supporting Science and Sanity. Thank you. Your space bucks go to a good cause, feeding the starving man trapped in my basement. And to the food merchants supplying said raw meat, thanks to David G. the Original, Augie, 11 Bravo Crunchy, Terry Higgins, Pedro Munoz, David G. the Other One, and Vox Apollyon. Thank you very much, my loyal food merchants, for feeding Steve. I hope your support will continue in the future. And with that, the video is over. Goodbye! Real quick before we actually end off though, part of an unscripted thing at the end, I'm going to apologize for this video. It's terrible quality. I acknowledge that. I had to cut easily 10 minutes worth of stuff out because unfortunately I lost the recording part from Steve. I accidentally deleted it while cleaning up my computer. Yeah, okay, goodbye.